So, for as long as I can remember, I've struggled to enjoy books the way other people seem to. I'd hear friends talk about getting lost in Harry Potter, seeing Hogwarts in their minds like a movie. But for me, reading, it was just words, like no pictures, no scenes, just a quiet hum of ideas. And I actually thought that's how everyone's mind worked. So let's try something together. Close your eyes and think of a red apple. What do you see? Now, most people can see it very clearly. The curve of its shape, the glossy shine, maybe even a little speck of light glinting off its surface. For them, it feels vivid, almost real. But when I close my eyes and think of a red apple, I see nothing. There's a blank space where the apple should be. And this realization, it hit me during a conversation with my wife. I asked her to do the same thing, picture a red apple, and she would describe it so vividly. Its deep red color, the smooth texture. And I just laughed, confused, and I was like, do you actually see all of that? And she was like, don't you? And that moment cracked something open in me. I learned that there is a word for this, aphantasia. It means my mind doesn't form images, not like most people do. Now, at first, I felt a kind of a loss, like I'd been missing out on a secret world. But it also made me very curious. How do our minds shape the way we see or don't see the world? Why is my brain wired the way this way? And what does it mean for who I am? Like, I'm still sort of trying to piece the puzzle here. And I want to take you along, not as someone with all the answers, but as someone who's been asking questions and piecing it together like a late night talk with a friend. So let's explore it, what it means to have a mind that works differently, and maybe discover something about yours too. Now, that conversation with my wife, it was sort of a turning point. I'd always assumed phrases like, picture this or imagine a beach were just figures of speech. When someone said, visualize your happy place, I'd think about ideas of a place, maybe the feeling of warmth or the sound of waves, but no images actually appeared, and I thought that this was normal. But I learned that aphantasia, a term coined in 2015 by neurologist Adam Zeman, describes people like me whose minds don't form mental images. The word comes from the Greek a, without, and phantasia, imagination, and it's estimated to affect about 2 to 5% of the people. Research is still kind of emerging on this, and this realization, it sort of felt like a quiet shock. I wasn't broken, but I was different. I spent that first day just wrestling with curiosity and loss, and I sort of felt like I'd been left out on this secret club, one where people could conjure up entire worlds in their minds. And I thought about all the books I struggled to enjoy, like Harry Potter or Lords of the Ring. For me, reading was just a string of facts, not a movie in my head. And now I understand why some people lose themselves in novels. They see Hogwarts, the shimmering halls, the flickering candles, and I can't. So that stung a little. But as I sat with this, I started to wonder, what else did I assume was universal? How many ways are there to experience the world inside our heads? Now, the more I explored aphantasia, the more I realized that it's not a yes or no condition. It's a kind of a spectrum. I would ask friends and family to picture this red apple, and their answers would just fascinate me. Like my best friend, for example, described a crisp, shiny apple floating in a void. My mom threw me for a loop. She said, I don't see an apple. I see salmon. And I sort of laughed and I was like, why do you see a salmon? And she said, because I'm in the mood for salmon. As if it was obvious, her mind, though in her emotions, her cravings that day. And this variety reflects what researchers are uncovering about mental imagery. In the 19th century, Sir Francis Galton conducted one of the first studies on visualization, asking people to imagine their breakfast table. And he was sort of stunned to find that some saw vivid details while others saw nothing. Now, Galton's work showed that our inner sight varies widely. Some people have hyperphantasia, where mental images rival reality. But others, like me, think in concepts, words, or feelings instead of pictures. And this shapes our experience in very surprising ways. Now, I've always found that reading fiction was sort of tedious because I can't really visualize scenes, but I love movies because they give me the visuals that my mind doesn't create. And yet, I have a very sharp visual memory. Show me a movie frame and I can name it instantly. And I can recall childhood details, my old backyard, the creaky swing set, the smell of rain, with startling clarity. But when I try to picture these memories, nothing. It's just feelings and facts. Now, this paradox led to another discovery: dreaming. People at Aphantasia often report vivid visual dreams, and I'm no exception. My dreams are colorful, chaotic, like stepping into a movie. And neurologists suggest this happens because dreaming taps into a different part of the brain, like the visual cortex, which aren't active when we visualize while awake. It's as my brain saves its images for sleep. And then I stumbled across a deeper question. Why do I have aphantasia? Now, some researchers suggest that it could be linked to childhood trauma, a way for the brain to protect itself. Visualizing can bring up powerful emotions, and for some, those might feel too heavy. And so I started to reflect on my past. Now, it was true that I was sort of abused by my mother as a kid, and I carry these memories of my father abusing my mother. And these moments are sort of etched in me, not as images, but as feelings, like a weight in my chest. Yet I remember a time when my imagination was actually very vivid. When I was a kid, I would play with action figures, turning the carpet into an island, and the couch was like a mountain. And I would see those worlds back then. And did my brain dim that inner screen to shield me from pain? I don't know. But the possibility feels like a tender thread connecting my past to who I am. Now, a different way of seeing these things is that at first, aphantasia made me feel like I was missing something, and I wondered if I had been cheated out of creativity, that spark we tied to vivid imagination. And the thing is, I've always thought of myself as a very creative person. I make these YouTube videos and I lose myself in photography, and I love abstract ideas. So how can I do all of that if I don't have mental images? And the more I reflected, the more I saw that creativity isn't tied to one way of thinking. So take Walt Disney, for example, who reportedly had hyperphantasia and could visualize entire theme parks. His imagination was a canvas of color. But then there's Ed Catmull, the co-founder of Pixar, who has aphantasia and still helped create groundbreaking animated films. In a 2019 interview, Catmull said that he thinks in concepts and patterns, not images. His creativity thrives in ideas, not pictures. And that felt like a quiet permission slip. I don't need images to create. My mind just works differently. And this sort of shifted something in me. Instead of feeling limited, I start to appreciate how my brain compensates. I lean on words, emotions, intuition. When I edit a video, I don't see the final cut. I feel its rhythm, the way a scene flows. When I take a photo, I respond to the moment, the light, the mood. And maybe aphantasia isn't a lack, but more like a different lens, a way of seeing without seeing. So, if you have aphantasia, you might be wondering, can I learn to visualize? So, research is still very young, but some studies suggest that visualization can improve with practice, though it's unlikely to become as vivid as for those without aphantasia. Now, there are these techniques like guided meditation or focusing on sensory details, smells, sounds, textures, can sometimes spark faint images for some. For me, I've tried describing scenes, letting words paint what my mind can't, and it's just not the same, but it's a start. Now, you might also wonder how aphantasia affects daily life. So, For some people, it can make tasks like navigation or recalling faces trickier, but many of us adapt naturally. So personally, I use lists and verbal cues to remember where we parked our car. I don't actually drive myself, my wife drives. And my sharp memory for facts helps me to keep up. Now, aphantasia doesn't dim your creativity or potential. People like Ed Catmull prove that. And it can even be a strength. Thinking in concepts can lead to unique perspectives, like seeing the world through a poet's lens rather than a painter's. Now, if you're curious about the trauma connection, know that that is just one theory. Not all aphantasia is tied to trauma. And even if it is, it's a sign that your brain's resilience is protecting you in its own way. Now, healing from trauma through therapy or journaling might not restore visualization, but it can deepen self-awareness, which is just as powerful. As neuroscientist Oliver Sacks wrote, every brain is unique, and every uniqueness is a gift. Aphantasia is a part of your uniqueness, and you can thrive with it. So try this. Next time you're reading or creating, focus on the feelings or ideas the words evoke. Lean into your strengths, and maybe you're great at patterns, emotions, or abstract thinking. Experiment with tools like mind maps or voice notes to capture ideas. You're not limited, you're just wired differently. And that's actually a beautiful thing. So finally, I just want to say that learning that I have aphantasia has been sort of a quiet journey of self-discovery. It started with sadness, like the initial shock, the sense of missing out, but I come to see it as a gift, a reminder that there is no one way to experience the world. Whether it's a shield from the past pain or just how I'm wired, aphantasia has shaped me in ways that I'm still sort of investigating. Our minds are vast, mysterious, and deeply personal. Whether you see a red apple in vivid color or, like me, feel its essence without an image, your inner world is yours alone. Now, I'm still exploring what this means. I'm trying to read more fiction, leaning into words even though they don't paint pictures, and I'm asking other people about their inner worlds, marveling at our differences. And I'm sort of trusting my own way of thinking. Less visual, but no less rich. So if you have aphantasia, know that you're not alone, and your mind is capable of create incredible things. Try experimenting with how you think and create, and maybe you'll uncover strengths you never knew you had. As Mary Oliver wrote, the world's full of mystery, and you're one of them. And I just love that, because it reminds me that we're all just mysteries unfolding in our own way. So what does your inner world look like? Do you see images, or do you think in words, feelings, or something else? And how does that shape your life? Share your thoughts below. I'm curious to hear about the worlds inside your head, and let's keep this conversation alive. Thanks for watching.